Well, thank you so much for doing this. I love the new special, and I'm glad I happened to find out about you right before it came out. Last time you were up in Saratoga Springs, New York. What's been going on with you now since the special? Are you out on the road right now?
Yeah, man. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I've been out in the road. I'm in Springfield, Massachusetts right now at the MGM at Roar Comedy Club. So I just been on the road since basically since the new year because I'm supposed to tape another one this summer. So I'm just preparing for that.
Oh, awesome. So are you shooting for an hour for the next special?
No, I'm taping another half hour for HBO Max.
Okay. So at this point, where are you with like the pace of your writing? Are you at a point where you're kind of ahead of the material you need to have, and it's time to record stuff, or are you just that fast at turning over material?
I don't consider. Nah, I definitely don't consider myself fast at turning over material. It takes me a while to writing it. I can write it fairly fast, but it takes me a while to really get happy with it and comfortable and tighten it and get to a point where I think it's ready. But I this new half hour that I'm doing, I pretty much have all of it. I'm at like a little bit over 35, maybe 40 now. So now the job is just tightening and cutting stuff that I'm not going to put in it. So I'm not really writing new stuff, like new bits regularly, but I'm trying to like tighten the old stuff. Like
Okay.
not the old stuff, but the stuff that I wrote since I filmed the Comedy Central one, which
Yeah.
was in late July of last year.
Okay. Um, cool. I can't wait to hear it. Now for like maybe younger comics who are trying to get their foot in the door with certain parts of the business, what do you think that like HBO and Comedy Central play different roles in the industry right now, or are they both just great platforms to be marketing that material?
What do you mean different roles?
Like, would you go to something, or would you go to Comedy Central with like a more specific idea, or like is one better for the other, or is it just they're both great stand up platforms? Because obviously they're both like two of the most well known besides like Netflix for putting that
Yeah,
stuff out. But I wasn't.
yeah. I mean, they're both like legit stand up platforms. I was happy with doing the Comedy Central. I was happy that they agreed to put it out on YouTube, so I knew I could get some people to watch. I had already done some stuff for them that got a lot of views, so I knew I could get people to watch. That was important because that's what we're trying to do, right? Is get our name out
Oh
there.
yeah.
Yeah, so that was important, and then when HBO had to offer, like, yeah, what am I gonna say? No? I'm not gonna say no to HBO. Yeah, sure. Um, I whatever. Like, I remember starting off in this when I had zero money and no opportunity. So at this point, any opportunity that's thrown my way, if it's like legit and seems right, I'm gonna take it.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm trying to get like a sense of, you know, like I'm a musician mainly, but I've been doing stand up comedy on the side for about a year, and there's like lots of terminology and parts of the business that I start to pick up on, and you have things like just for laughs or like podcast circuits or like certain things that kind of play a role in like how comedians look at like, oh, this is like the kind of step you get from working with this company or with these people. And I guess like it's hard to get a sense of like Comedy Central's place in things nowadays, because I mean I do love a lot of the specials they've had coming out, and I used to watch Comedy Central all the time, but with all the shifts that the internet's been creating in like who really is like a power player in the market, it's kind of hard to get a sense of what Comedy Central and HBO mean to comics now who are working places like the Comedy Cellar or Caroline's and the Stand, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean everything is something. Like everything is something. Even if you could, I mean, Epix is putting out specials, and if you don't have any other offers, and Epix offers me a special, I'm gonna consider it. Everything is something. I think Comedy Central has stayed relevant and made a large push because they went digital, and YouTube is probably the second best place to release something right now other than Netflix, and YouTube might be the first place if you got the following, or if it's like somebody with a following that's going to release it. Comedy Central has like 2 million followers on YouTube, so if they're gonna release something and push it on YouTube, that's like logically what makes sense. Sure, Netflix, there's like a glamour and allure to that, sure, but if you don't have the following and they're not gonna push you and put you at the top of their page, you're just gonna die in their um, endless hours of programming that they have.
Yeah, I mean YouTube's its own thing, but at this point, that's like where a lot of the new power players are going, like Shane Gillis and Mark Normand. I mean,
Yeah.
I
But
mean,
Shane and Mark, they're both my friends. They have the following. Yeah, if you're gonna go on Rogan and promote your half hour, and Shane had all those great sketches before he released a special, which he did, I know, intentionally, which was a great smart marketing idea where he built his following. So sure, if you have 100,000 fans of yours that subscribe to your YouTube channel, it makes sense to release your stuff on YouTube. Or if you're planning to do Rogan or go on a press tour where you're gonna get those eyes. But if you're a new comic or a relatively unknown comic who has 1,000 followers on YouTube, will I say, tape your special and put it out on YouTube? I think that it's not gonna get the traction that the viral traction that you need, because right now everybody's doing it. That's the thing about like YouTube. Yeah, it's great that anyone can do it, but it's also anyone can do it. So,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah. Of course. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of terrible, terrible specials coming out as well on these new unexplored territories on the internet. Um,
right.
I
I'm
mean,
not sure. Yeah, I'm like, sure, of course, there's terrible. I'm sure that people would argue there's terrible specials on TV also,
yeah,
So I'm not sure if it's terrible, but I'm just saying, as far as like getting that pop, that you want people to see it. That's the point. That's the point of doing a special, so people could see it and come out to see you when you're on the road or whatever, right?
yeah. Do you feel like the touring you've been doing right now is like markedly different, like as a result of your special coming out, or do you almost feel like what you're doing now is just as much helping the special as the special is helping the touring?
I think it's been a progressive climb. Like for the last few years, I've been lucky enough to every year do a little more. Like I did, starting with when I first did the Comedy Central digital set, and then doing This Week at the Cellar, then the Tonight Show, then I had a short special on HBO that was 15 minutes, and all that stuff. Now the half hour, all that stuff has grown. So I see it. It's growing, but it's not like a night and day light switch change.
Okay. Now, with that growth, I'm sure you're seeing a lot of like increased interaction online. I was listening to you recently on an episode of Robert Kelly's "You Know What, Dude." I think it was a little bit older of an episode, and Robert wasn't on the episode, but I
Last month?
remembered. What was that?
I say no. That was last month. Yeah, it wasn't old.
Um, I can't remember what part of it you said this, but I do remember you saying when you were plugging the special to saying leave nice comments on it. Have you been getting any particularly not nice comments, or did saying that prompt some not nice comments, or have you been had a pretty pleasant interaction with the internet and obviously all the crazy stuff that comes along with that?
Yeah, no, not really, not really. I've been very, all the comments, like I would say over 95% of the comments are extremely positive and encouraging. So I'm happy about that. But even if as a comic, you focus on the negatives, I've had here and there like these negative comments. And it's not even so much that they like hurt. It's more that like I'm just fascinated by the type of person, by the type of human being that goes on YouTube and leaves a negative comment. Like that's just a fascinating mentality to me. The fact that you think that you're so important that your negative comment should be heard. Like I understand you don't have to like it. If you don't like it, just change the channel.
Well, even positive comments, it's like after a certain point, it's like who has time to say all this, or like who's listening. But I mean, the positive stuff is really great for building that
No, the
momentum
positive I
online. So,
understand, because the positive,
but even
if you
that
find
is
an
like,
artist that you like, if you find an artist that you like, you want to give him the clout that he needs to advance his career, right? So if it's a comedian that you enjoy, you leave a positive comment knowing that it's going to help the algorithm and Comedy Central is going to see it and it's going to ultimately help him move along his career. I understand that.
Yeah, but
But
even that is like a certain amount of effort that not everyone's putting in. Like obviously your fans are going to do that. It's just like it's so weird how the internet brings that out of people, including the negative stuff.
yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
I think the negative, I don't think the positive is comparable to the negative. Like, I understand the positive. I don't understand why somebody would leave a negative comment. You could just move on.
yeah, that makes sense. Um, I mean, I can't. I don't remember if this was in the same podcast or I don't know. I feel like I've heard a few people talk about this recently. I think like Ari Shafir has talked about it a bit, where it's like you the you rarely see any kind of negativity online translate to anything in the clubs or in real life. I mean, have you had any like uncomfortable situations or bad reactions to jokes or anything that's kind of been tough
Oh
to
no, but
navigate? I don't feel like you would. You seem like a
no, I'm
pretty
not that guy though. So no.
yeah, like
Ari's that guy. So if anyone would have negative, it would be Ari. But and he doesn't. But no, not me. Not at all. No.
yeah. Well, he's got like the darkest sense of humor, and
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a bit about your where you feel your sense of humor lies because you've got this. I love you that you've got this like not too blue, but kind of like sassy way you approach things. Like your bit about owning stock in Delta. It's like it's kind of like sassy towards the hypothetical workers at the airport, or your bit about like dating is like a little. You've got this kind of like sassy take on. Uh,
Sassy. That's so funny. I never heard that.
but it's like I don't
The
know, like you
description
don't
for
get
my comedy.
but like it's I don't know. That almost makes it sound a little like dainty, but it's like you're. It's not that. It's
Yeah.
like you don't get too dark and you don't get too like aggressive about it, but you make these funny points where you're kind. It's kind of like you're being a little like facetious in like this really slick way. I don't know. I like this like tone that a lot of these like especially your stuff about like how things have been during the pandemic and like how people have been acting in society lately. I feel like you like touch on it in a nice way. I mean, do you how do you feel about like really dark and like black and blue humor? Like where's your role between being a clean comic and like finding stuff that you think goes a little too far?
I mean, certain things, dark comedy. I feel like that's a genre um, of comedy. I love Anthony Jeselnik. I think he's a great comedian. I love if he has a new special. I'm watching it. I'll go see Anthony Jeselnik. I think he's a great joke writer, great comedian. But that's not the genre of music that I make.
Yeah.
Like it's all genre. That's not what I make. I'm not that guy. That there's certain. I feel like there's a certain with making that type of comedy. There's a certain bravado and a certain look and a certain attitude that you have to have, which I don't possess.
Hmm.
So it's not to say I can't write a dark joke, but it just doesn't fit with me, who I am, or any of my other stuff.
Yeah. I mean, will you try out darker stuff at like more one-off sets that you're not going to release just for the fun of it, and then focus on when you're like recording seriously on your what you would consider your style, or does that just not really feel
My
right to say?
my brain just doesn't think dark.
Okay.
Like, so I mean, I definitely have jokes that are darker than other jokes, but if you put it up on the wall of dark, it definitely wouldn't stand up against anybody else's dark stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's like, again, like we're making type of music, and like if dark was like country music, it's like, oh, I don't make country music, so you wouldn't you wouldn't tell somebody who makes you know like rap, like, oh, do you ever make country music? It's like, nah, I don't make country music.
Yeah.
I enjoy it though. I enjoy it. I like to see it. I like Ari. I like Jeselnik. I feel like that's a genre it's a space for it.
Yeah. Do you have any like particular favorite dark jokes or like maybe like dark pieces of comedy like a show or something?
I mean, I love Jeselnik stuff. Like I love all his specials.
Okay, like any particular like jokes, if you can. I mean, it's okay if you can't think of like a particular one off the top of your
He
head,
has
but
a he has I mean he has the he's known he has like the he has in his last special the stuff about he has like a 10-minute chunk on like abortion that's super dark. He has his previous specials the Casey Anthony joke about the Casey Anthony the lady who allegedly murdered her kids in
yeah,
Florida, and he
yeah,
talk about that, and he has 9/11 stuff. Um, one of his most famous ones is the one about a motorcycle. He goes he said I told uh I'm gonna mess it up, but he said I told somebody he's like I think he said I told my mom that I wanted to buy a motorcycle, and she was like, your brother died at 18 from a horrible motorcycle accident, so you could just have his.
I don't think
that's
I've heard that one. I
yeah,
thought I'd seen his last.
that's dark as hell, but it's funny as hell.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
see, I don't do that. Like my brain doesn't think like that. But that's so good.
yeah. I mean, he's got his own thing carved out. I mean, and I feel like even though, like you said, it's a genre. You know, at the end of the day, it's like it's just what's authentically in the comedian's voice. Because like
For sure.
Tony Hinchcliffe is dark in a different way, but
For
they're
sure.
like to different people. They could both be considered. One could be considered edgier than the other, just depending
Right.
on what kind of thing sets you off. Or like Jimmy Carr or someone like that. You know, they each have
Right.
kind of their own brand of dark.
Right. And if you see me, I mean, if you see me or if you watch my stuff, you know that like that's not really my demeanor or on stage, you know. So it kind of I feel like the audience would just if I just did like some dark joke, they would just be like, "What?"
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You've got like a really like calm, really like smart writing, like I said before, like a slick delivery. I was listening to you on, I think this was an older podcast on Joe List's Mindful Metal Jacket,
Mm-hmm.
and you were talking about how you were angrier when you were younger, and you know how that I guess just how it was like more of like a thing that you didn't feel was particularly tied to anything and it kind of went away, but you know like as an artist when you think about like your emotional state, do you have any particular favorite um like artists of any form, you know, not just comedy, do you have any particularly favorite like really like zen or calm artists, and then on the other side of the spectrum particularly like wild crazy artists?
Um. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. If we're talking about if we're talking about uh music, like I remember growing up, like I was a fan of like first Tupac and then DMX, who were I mean I guess you can argue that they were both on the spectrum. They were actually both far extremes where they were both zen and angry.
Yeah,
They both dropped gems and stuff, but they also had like an angry side to them. But even now, like I listen to people like I like to listen to people like Jay-Z just kind of talk because everything he says kind of just like he's always just dropping like gems and like even in his music now he had a whole album where like the Magna Carta was basically like him giving financial advice to like the hood.
yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like with DMX, I know his wild side more, and then with
Hmm.
Tupac, I feel like he always has this air of like he's you know he'll have songs like Dear Mama or
Hmm.
It Ain't Easy where he is being really sensitive and talking about how like difficult things can be, but he's like always maintaining this like tough bravado, like don't mess with me kind of thing. So like you said, I feel like he hits both ends of the spectrum
Hmm.
so
Yeah, for
well.
sure.
Um, But you know, I guess that's like, a lot of guys like that. You know, like Snoop Dogg does a similar kind of thing, and then his like his delivery and flow is particularly like calm and like signature to be like very level like that. Is there like is that the kind of music you normally like are into, like those artists, or what musically are you normally into?
Nah, that's I mean I like hip hop. and R&B, but I really listen to like all different types of music. Like it just depends what I'm in the mood of, and that's why I always complain. That's why I always compare comedy to music, because I know that my sense in music is like it's just what I'm in the mood for at that point.
Yeah.
And, I equate comedy to that when people be like, "Oh, who's your favorite? Who's your top five?" And I'm like, "I'll give you one if you need it, but like those aren't my top. Like it depends. It depends who I'm in the mood for. It depends what I'm in the mood for. Sometimes I want to hear Chappelle. Sometimes I want to hear Brian Regan.
Yeah.
Is anybody would I say that one is funnier than the other? No, I wouldn't. It's music. They're just making art.
Yeah, okay, I feel you. I feel like I've gotten better over the years at saying like definitive what's my favorite, but when I was younger, I could never decide on things like that. I don't know, like, but in general, I do like go through different moods. I listen to a lot of like jazz and funk
Mm-hmm.
and hip hop, and it's all just like spur of the moment what I'm feeling. So
Whatever you're feeling, right?
yeah, um, but I do like to ask comedians on the show about what music they're into because I mostly have a lot of musicians on, and I like to ask them, the comedy that they're into.
Okay.
Do you play any music, or do you have any musical background?
No, if I knew how to play music or sing, I wouldn't do comedy. I would just do that.
Um, well, one thing musically that I am wondering if you can teach me something about, and I guess just a broader subject that you might be able to teach me a little about, is the culture of the Dominican Republic. Now, you might not have a lot to say on this, but you said in your special that you're Dominican, and I've met Dominican people, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't know anything
Hmm.
about being Dominican or the Dominican Republic. So I was reading about it a little bit and trying to get
Hmm.
a sense of the start of it and the culture and everything. Are you into Dominican music like merengue and
Yeah,
bachata?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I
do,
love it. Yeah.
do you have any recommendations for people to check out or any like memories about the music that touch you particularly?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up. I mean, my family, my mom and dad are both born and raised in the Dominican Republic, and then they moved um, to the United States later on in their life. So they brought, the culture over here um, with them. So I was raised pretty much like really embedded in the Dominican, Latino culture. So for sure, I'm still like connected to it, and I still enjoy their music. And they have like a ton of great artists who have kind of went like mainstream, like Romeo Santos, who he's like he is the biggest bachata artist in the world, and he comes to the United States and plays arenas, like he does anywhere from Madison Square Garden in New York to the American Airlines Arena in Houston. Like he'll sell out arenas all over the country. Even places where there's not just Dominicans and all over the world, Japan and everywhere. So he's like one of the biggest artists. Uh, Romeo Santos, and they have like some of their classic merengue guys from like Juan Luis Guerra, who's like a classic. Another guy who does arenas all over the world. Like Juan Luis Guerra was the first person to sell out a stadium in Japan where they don't speak Spanish.
Oh wow. Well,
Like a huge deal.
that's awesome. I mean, I love Japan. I mean, I used to take Japanese in school, and I used to be big into anime when I was like in middle school and high school. But
Hmm.
also, Japan. I'm really big into jazz, and Japan has a great appreciation for jazz and a lot of American styles of music. So I love the culture
I
of
feel like
music.
Japan has a great appreciation for like art in general.
Yeah.
Like they're like big on art.
Um. As far as places to go, is that like a place that you is like high on your list of countries you'd like to tour, or do you have any other particular places that come to mind first?
No, I don't really think um I don't necessarily like have a list of like, oh, I want to go here. Like I've been going to really cool places. I just want to continue to go. Like I'm supposed to go to Israel in June. I'm
Oh,
looking forward.
awesome.
Yeah. Um.
Uh,
So yeah, I just want to keep like going to new places and seeing the culture and learning about the place. I like going to new places.
yeah. Um, one last, or I guess two last things on the Dominican Republic. What's like the thing that when people find out you're Dominican, like what do in your experience most people associate with the Dominican Republic if they don't know much about it?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Like if you're talking to someone and they find out you're Dominican and like they're not, like is there something that you feel like Dominicans get like are known for or stereotype or like what's like the common thing that people associate with the Dominican Republic that you
For sure, I would say for most people who aren't from there, it's like baseball.
okay. And
Cause
then
it's
oh go on.
because there's so there's so many good baseball players. So I think baseball is the thing that they definitely associate that like because they dominate in American uh, baseball. So that's the thing like a lot of Americans know about.
Are you nice at baseball?
I mean, not anymore. When I was a kid, I used to play. I was like on a team and stuff, but not anymore.
Oh, okay. I used to sit in the outfield and pick the grass. I sucked.
Yeah.
um, Now, if you had to tell other people, non-Dominicans, one thing about Dominican culture that would help them understand Dominicans more quickly, what would you tell them to help them out?
Watch baseball.
Is it like a is there like a particular team? Like, is there like a big like I assume there's a lot of Dominicans in New York, so are like the Yankees like a big thing for Dominicans, or is it not really
Yeah,
team
well, the
specific?
Mets. I mean, honestly, yes, but like honestly, it depends what team has the most Dominican players. And like for a long time, Boston had a lot of Dominican players because they had Manny Ramirez, they had Pedro Martinez, they had David Ortiz. So Boston was like the Dominican team to root for, even in New York,
Yeah.
because they had all the Dominicans. And then a lot of them went to the Mets. Like Pedro went to the Mets, and then they had Jose Reyes. So the Mets had a lot of Dominicans. The Yankees, they never really had a ton of Dominicans. So most of the Dominicans I know in New York either cheer for like the Mets or the Red Sox.
Okay. Um. All right. Now, uh, about the special, Growing Shame. Um,
Yeah,
Fantastic special. Love a lot of the bits. I kind of wanted to ask you some follow up questions on some of the
sure.
bits. For example, how is your possessed aunt?
She's doing good. She's doing good. Yeah, that's my closest aunt, and she's good.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to get too far into the recipe of your bit. I mean, it's a part of a very funny bit. I mean, feel free to preview as much as you want for the audience. But is there more material to that relationship, or is that kind of the most you'll get out of it? Is that like an ongoing, like, is it a pretty like stable thing? Like, oh, sometimes she just starts speaking in tongues, or is that like a developing situation for her?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I haven't. It's not like she's getting possessed. It's not like she gets like possessed every time I see her, or like that's like a thing. It's more of a thing that like I've seen it. To be honest, I've seen it twice my entire life.
Okay.
Um, so it's just it's exaggerating joke on it because it's a thing that like she is known for, but not so much like with now or with me. So
Yeah.
you just find a funny like thing in your family. Like it's funny. Like my family when that comes up, like they always bring her up. Like she's the go to person as when like supernatural shit comes up. So like I just thought of like bringing people around that. Like I just that's how I kind of came up with the bit because I was just like I remember like my family even now more than it happening they'll talk about it like in at events at functions and it's weird to like talk about like bringing a guest to the family like I'm thinking of like I thought about like bringing a girl around and that's the conversation that breaks out.
Yeah.
That's like how I came up with the bit where I was just like, I can't just bring anybody around this.
Yeah. Um, does does she like the bit? Has she heard it?
Well, I don't think she's heard it. She's my aunt. She speaks Spanish. She doesn't even speak English. So I don't think she heard it. I've had my other members of the family who have heard it, and they think it's funny.
Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, I figured it might not be like a super present thing. Like that's obviously like good material for a joke, just to say it in a more general way like that. Like it could be common or it might not be, but
Yeah. But
uh,
I mean, like, even though I haven't seen it like at that much, like maybe 2, 3 times my entire life, like it's always there. Like it's always like a thing. Like I still remember now, like being at parties where it's like a thing where it's like she might get possessed. So it's not like a fake thing.
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a hilarious situation to think about potentially having. Like I've played some gigs in churches. You know, lots of different churches I've played at have different overall vibes, but there's one church in downtown Albany I played at for a little bit where I was, I'm not a religious guy. I was just going because it was a Kojic church that played like really great gospel music. I love a lot of gospel music, especially bass players and drummers. And I was the only white person there, and uh, um, the, I think when I first walked in, like a woman stopped me and was like worried that I was like there to like shoot up the church. Like it was like
Yeah.
weird. Like it was like I was kind of out of place for there. And then we start playing the music, and people like once we got to like a what I don't know if you know like what a shout is, like two people literally passed out on the floor, and I was like, this is like they this church is way more serious than the church I used to go to, like some like country ass Methodist church where like everyone would just be really quiet and
Yeah.
do their thing and leave. Like, but there are people who legit get the Holy Spirit and everything. So that's like the
Sure.
first thing I thought of when you talk about your aunt getting possessed. Like,
Sure.
I've seen it. um,
Yeah.
but I guess another person I wouldn't mind an update on if you have any. You now or at one point had a crackhead named Beyonce in your life. Is that person still in your life?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that that was a person that I saw on the train. I mean on the yeah, I was a person I saw on the train who was just yelling that, but it wasn't a for the bit I make it it's a friend, but it wasn't like a neighborhood one. It was a neighborhood crackhead. It was more of a roving crackhead who I
Okay.
saw on the train who said that, and I thought that was funny.
Okay, I thought it was like yeah, like you're like on your block or something like near your house, but that makes sense. So I'm gonna guess you
Yeah.
don't have any more updates on that.
No, I never saw her him. Yeah.
Okay, but I just had to check. Just had to, um
Yeah.
um
A lot of times with like the way I write jokes, the way I write bits is, I'll just take a nugget that's true. I try to use nuggets that are true to try to convey like my way of thinking on certain things. Um,
yeah.
so a lot of it is just like, yeah, this is kind of true, but I'm more using it to convey the way of thinking. Like the point of that joke is you should be able to call anybody whatever they want to be called. Why is that even like? Who cares? Just call them what they ask you to call them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the way. You know, and like the same with the stock joke. Like, was I really walking through the airport like I owned Delta Airlines? Like, no. That's just me. That's me being silly. But the point of view is that you I own stocks and I traveled, and I'm like, oh, I should be treated better than what I'm being treated. But and then obviously I exaggerated. That's where the comedy comes in. So.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I guess I just want to see, or I guess give people like a little bit of a preview, like, oh, a crackhead named Beyonce, like, is like a joke to look out for, but also to
Sure.
see if there's more backstory to pull out of it. But I would figure most of the time there's embellishment. When I've tried to write jokes, I like the idea that after a certain point, if the joke structurally works, who like I would rather just leave the audience wondering. I mean, I'm into more like absurd stuff. Like I love like Dave Attell, and who I'm sure you love too. But just the I guess like just painting really ridiculous pictures. I don't do Xanax, but I wrote one joke I wrote is like, I love Xanax. I stick it straight up my ass, mainly because I have a nervous bladder, uh, or things
Yeah.
like that. Like where I'm not like trying to actually make people think I'm on something, but at the same time, it just saying it to to paint that picture for the audience. I feel like is part of the beauty of the art form. I mean, do you generally kind of like when you're writing, do you try to be like throw in extra details like, okay, this is what I've gotten out of the actual story. Now just to keep getting punchlines, I'm going to keep adding things and expanding on it.
I mean, yeah, I'm just trying to be funny. So, like, this whole notion of like you gotta be like real on stage, I don't get it. I mean, I think people misconstrued real with like everything has to be 100% like you have to tell it how it happened. Everybody embellishes stories, not just comedians. You ever been with like a friend and something happened to you with him or her, and then you hear them retell that story in like a different to other people, and they're embellishing to make the story sound more interesting. Like we all do that. It's the
Yeah.
human. It's how you should tell a story. I feel like no story on its own legs is interesting if you weren't there, right?
Yeah.
Like if you weren't there, you have to like, and you're retelling it to somebody. You should embellish. Every great storyteller embellishes. Like they bring the story to life. You know.
Yeah.
So when I'm writing, I never try to think like I just don't try to. I wouldn't tell it. I try not to tell a joke where even if I'm creating a scenario or story, that's not me or who I was. You know,
Yeah.
like for example, with the like, let's say with the Beyonce, with the crackhead on the bus, whatever. Like if I were to be like, oh, the crackhead on the bus gonna be called Beyonce, and I told him to shut the fuck up, like that's
Yeah.
embellishing. That's also not me, so that's not real because it's like I wouldn't tell him that.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
That's not my, and it's not to say that everything I say I said in a story I said, but it's like I wouldn't tell him to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
So even if I said, oh, even if I said in the story, oh, I told him have a nice day, and I didn't say that, it's like okay, but I would say that
Yeah. And
in
that
in an alternate like scenario, I would say that. So that's still me being real to me. So when I'm telling a story, I'm looking for new angles. I'm always trying to get the laugh, but I'm just trying to be real to who I am or what I would potentially say or do.
yeah. I think I remember you talking a bit on Gianmarco Ceresi's podcast about this kind of stuff, like how big a
Yeah,
lie is. Like I know
heard
Gianmarco.
all, yeah.
What was that?
I said you heard all the pods.
Yeah. Oh, I actually I had just been happening. That was probably the first one I listened to because I interviewed Gianmarco recently, and I just found out about his podcast.
Right, right.
And I remembered him saying that he was talking about like, oh, his parents have been divorced so many times, and it's like so hard to be like technically accurate. You kind of just got to say the thing that works the best on stage. Is there like do you have any particular like biggest lies, like things you've warped to make into a bit, or like any examples of when that became a problem on stage, like juggling a lie?
Wait, say that again. I'm sorry. He said that his parents are divorced and what?
Well, just like he was talking about how sometimes, like in a set, he'll be like, oh, in this set, he was like talking as though his one grandparent was still alive, even though they're actually all dead, and that like affects one of his other jokes. Do you ever like, have you ever caught yourself in a lie like that where it's kind of like been too big for your set, or like been hard to juggle?
Well, life, like, if you're speaking about, like, family stuff, life happens, so sometimes some of your bits, like that, like the one with his grandparents, for example, where his grandparent is no longer, alive. I had a bit that I wrote, a couple years ago about my grandparents, um, about, I say that my grandparents, they've been together for 59 years, and they're Hispanic, so they're thinking about getting married. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
that's the bit. And then in 2020, my grandma passed away.
Oh, okay.
So I'll still do that bit, but like that's a bit where it's like it's no longer that. I had like several bits, where with my mom, my mom was doing some of my bits, and then my mom ultimately ended up passing, and some of those bits I don't tell them anymore, but the ones that I do, I'll just, I have to say it in. I don't say it like, like she's alive still, but I say it like, in past tense, which
Yeah.
is an adjustment I had to make.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna bring it up at the end, but that is another thing I've heard on the podcast, and my deepest condolences. I'm sure it's been a tough past year you've had, but that makes it all much sweeter to see all the awesome stuff you're doing right now. Um,
Thank you. I
and
appreciate it. Yeah, it's very tough.
Um, but again, I hope I get to see you again in Saratoga, and I'm just lucky to be able to have you on my show. I do really appreciate it. You don't have a podcast, do you?
No,
Uh,
I don't. I gotta get one.
yeah, I was just making sure I didn't miss it because I looked a little bit, but you're on so many other people's things. Um, do you have any like goal sh- types of shows that you'd like to be on? Is there any like particular favorite mediums you like to see comedians on? Like for example, I'm a big fan of Kill Tony, um, or like Stand Up on the Spot.
Yeah, nah, not really. I don't. Not really. I kind of just do what I try to like do what people invite me to, or like my friends stuff. Like like if like Jim Marco's my friend, or the people they're my friends that I'll do their podcast, and then like if you ask me, I'll do your podcast. So there's nothing where I'm like, oh, I would love to do that, or like I really look like, I'm happy with where I'm at and like the stuff that I'm doing, and I'm grateful for every opportunity.
Yeah. Um, well, I've just about exhausted all the topics I wanted to hit on. I guess for these two last things, I couldn't really fit in somewhere neat. Um, in your special, you a your one of your ex girlfriends was cheating on you, and when the other man found out, he called you and asked if this was the man with pretty eyebrows or something along those lines. Um, what is that a compliment you get a lot, and are there any other compliments you find you get a lot?
Yeah, that is a compliment I do get a lot.
You do have nice eyebrows, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's generally from women, but in a joke, it's a guy. But um, yeah, I do get that. That is a compliment I get. Another one I get. Sometimes people tell me I have good eyes, which is weird. It's like not nice, just good. Because
Yeah.
my eyes are black. They're like, you have good eyes. Like, all right.
um, do you have any other particular skills that you pride yourself in besides the comedy? Like, you know, uh, whether it's an art or like a sport or anything?
No, I mean, I used to play a lot of sports. I used to play a lot of basketball. I'm still decent at basketball and baseball.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you had to be a type of artist besides a comedian, is there a particular art that attracts you?
I would like to be like a singer.
Yeah. Okay. Um, do you would you be into singing like we talked about before, like merengue or like singing in Spanish, or is there like a particular style?
Yeah, I would be into singing anything. If I had a voice, I would sing everything.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm about ready to wrap it up. You can sing for the audience if you want, but I doubt you'll want to. But
And I'm not gonna do that.
yeah, I figure. But you gave us some nice previews of the special. I hope everyone checks it out. Uh, Growing Shame. It's very amazing. I'm looking forward to the HBO special that you got coming out. Do you have any dates that you want to plug or anything else?
Yeah, yeah. I got. the HBO thing that'll be out in the fall. I'm filming that in New York on July 16th. If you're in the New York area, you want to come out, you can follow my page, Ian Lara Live. I'll post more information about that when we get closer to the date. And how far is this reach? Is this just in New York?
This is upstate New York, near the Capital Region for the terrestrial station, and then there's also like an online presence to the station, and I put it on YouTube.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, for the New York people, July 16th. That's a date that I'm pushing a lot. We're gonna film in Brooklyn, New York. Gonna film a new half hour for HBO Max. That'll be out later this year. And I got Phoenix. I got the House of Comedy at the end of this month, and I got Warriors First, Soul Joe's coming out at the beginning of next month. You can go on my website, ianlaralive.com, for all the dates, or follow my Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Ian. Pleasure talking to you. So good seeing you a few months ago back at the Saratoga Comedy Works. But I really appreciate it, and you're always welcome back if you got more to promote.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you having me.
All right, man. Well, have a good one. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, have a good one.
Later.